People tend to overestimate what they can accomplish in a short period and vastly underestimate what they can achieve over the long haul with consistent effort. It's a paradox that holds people back because when they don't see immediate results, they quit, they stop, they assume the effort isn't worth it. But what if, instead of aiming for overnight success, we simply focused on getting just a little bit better every single day? Not by 50%, not by 10%, but by a mere 1%. A 1% improvement might seem insignificant in the moment, almost laughably small, but that's the nature of compounding. It's invisible at first. If you improve yourself by just 1% today and then another 1% tomorrow, it won't feel like much. You won't wake up a completely different person overnight. But give it time. Stack up those 1% gains over weeks, months, and years, and you will be unrecognizable from the person you are today. The results won't just be linear, they'll be exponential. Think about the way a plane takes off. If a pilot shifts the nose of the aircraft just a couple of degrees in one direction, it won't seem like much in the first few moments. But over the course of a long flight, that tiny shift determines whether the plane lands in a completely different city, a different country, or even on a different continent. The same principle applies to life. Small, deliberate changes in your daily actions can alter the entire trajectory of your future. History is full of examples of people who embrace the philosophy of small gains. Athletes who train with relentless consistency, adding just a fraction of a second to their speed each week, eventually break records. Writers who commit to crafting just one paragraph a day end up completing books that change the world. Businesses that improve their processes by 1% find themselves dominating industries a decade later. These aren't people with superhuman abilities. They're simply individuals who understand that progress isn't about grand gestures. It's about the steady accumulation of effort. Now imagine applying this to your own life. Imagine what would happen if you focused on improving one small thing each day, reading just one more page of a book, pushing yourself for an extra minute at the gym, spending a few more moments refining a skill, having one more meaningful conversation. It doesn't seem like much, but over time, these small changes add up to something astonishing. There's a reason why most people never achieve what they're truly capable of. It's not because they lack potential or intelligence. It's because they chase intensity over consistency. They push themselves hard for a few days, burn out, and then stop altogether. But real growth doesn't come from occasional bursts of effort. It comes from the slow, patient discipline of daily improvement. It comes from understanding that transformation isn't something that happens overnight, but something you build over time, brick by brick, step by step. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it removes the pressure. You don't have to reinvent yourself in a day. You don't have to wake up tomorrow and be a different person. You just have to be slightly better than you were yesterday. That's it. And when you commit to that, something incredible happens. You start to believe in yourself. You start to trust that your actions, no matter how small, are leading somewhere. That belief becomes fuel, and before you know it, the progress you once struggled to see becomes undeniable. If you ever feel overwhelmed by how far you have to go, remember this: the biggest transformations begin with the smallest steps. You don't climb a mountain in one giant leap. You take one step, then another, and then another. The key is to keep going, to trust in the process, to understand that 1% a day isn't just a strategy for improvement. It's a way of thinking, a way of living. And if you commit to that, truly commit, there will come a day when you look back and realize just how far you've come. A day when you'll stand at the peak of your own personal mountain, look down and realize that the person who started the climb wouldn't even recognize the person who finished it. Because small gains over time don't just change what you do, they change who you are. Perfection is a seductive illusion. It whispers in your ear that unless you can do something flawlessly, it isn't worth doing at all. It convinces you that if you don't have the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect circumstances, then you shouldn't even start. And so you hesitate, you delay, you tell yourself, I'll begin when I have it all figured out. But that day never comes. The pursuit of perfection isn't just unrealistic, it's paralyzing. It keeps people stuck, endlessly analyzing, endlessly doubting, endlessly waiting. And the problem is, while you're waiting for the perfect moment, someone else is out there stumbling forward, making mistakes, learning, growing, and eventually surpassing you. Not because they were more talented, not because they were smarter, but because they understood something fundamental. Progress matters more than perfection. Think about a child learning to walk. The child doesn't wait until they've mastered balance before taking that first step. They try, they stumble, they fall, and then they try again. They don't overthink it, they don't worry about looking foolish, and they certainly don't beat themselves up for failing. And because they embrace the process, they improve step by step, fall by fall, until one day walking is effortless. Somewhere along the way, as we grow older, we lose that willingness to be imperfect. We become afraid of looking foolish, of failing in front of others, of trying and not getting it exactly right. But what if you reframed failure as feedback? What if every mistake wasn't a sign of inadequacy, but a lesson, a necessary part of the process? What if, instead of seeing imperfection as a flaw, you saw it as proof that you're in motion, that you're growing, that you're becoming? Perfectionists struggle not because they lack ability, but because they refuse to engage with reality. They set standards so impossibly high that they guarantee their own failure before they even begin. And when they inevitably fall short, they don't see it as part of the process. They see it as confirmation of their worst fears, that they're not good enough, that they'll never be good enough, so why bother trying at all? But here's the truth. The people who succeed are not the ones who get everything right from the start. They are the ones who are willing to get it wrong and keep going. They are the ones who understand that the first draft will be messy, that the first attempt will be awkward, that the first few steps will be unsteady. But they take those steps anyway, because they know that motion, even imperfect motion, is better than standing still. Every great artist, every great writer, every great thinker, none of them started at mastery. Their early work was rough. Their ideas were incomplete. Their execution was flawed. But they showed up, they put in the work, and they allowed themselves to improve. And over time, the rough edges smoothed out. The ideas sharpened, the execution refined itself. The same applies to every area of life. You don't need to have the perfect workout plan before you go to the gym. You just need to show up. You don't need to be the best in your field before you start pursuing your career. You just need to start learning. You don't need to know everything before you take action. You just need to take the next step, however small it may be. Because when you commit to progress over perfection, something shifts. You stop waiting for confidence and realize that confidence comes from doing. You stop seeing failure as the enemy and recognize it as a teacher. You stop thinking you need to have it all figured out before you begin, and understand that clarity comes through action. And when you look back weeks, months, years from now, you won't see perfection. You'll see something better. You'll see growth. You'll see resilience. You'll see the proof that you didn't just dream about improving, you actually did it, because in the end, it was never about being perfect. It was about becoming something more than you were yesterday. Your habits shape your destiny, not your goals, not your dreams, your habits. You don't rise to the level of your aspirations, you fall to the level of your daily actions. People talk about motivation as if it's the driving force behind success, but motivation is fickle. It comes and goes. It's unreliable. And if you rely on it, you'll only make progress when you feel like it, which means you'll never make much progress at all. Discipline is what carries you forward when motivation fades, and discipline is built through habits, small, repeated actions that over time define who you are. The things you do daily, even the ones that seem trivial, are either leading you toward a better version of yourself or pulling you further away from it. And the key to transformation isn't some grand overhaul of your life. It's not about suddenly adopting the perfect routine overnight. It's about understanding that the smallest actions, repeated consistently, have the power to completely reshape your future. It starts with understanding one simple truth. Habits are stronger than willpower. Willpower is a limited resource. If you rely on it to push yourself through life, you will eventually burn out. But if you take the time to build good habits, you remove willpower from the equation altogether. You make success automatic. You make it inevitable. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up and have an internal debate about whether you feel like doing it today. You don't need motivation, it's just something you do. Now imagine if the most important actions in your life, reading, exercising, learning, working toward your goals, became as automatic as brushing your teeth. Imagine if success wasn't a matter of forcing yourself to act, but simply a byproduct of the habits you'd built. But you have to start small. The reason most people fail at building habits is that they go too big too fast. They decide they're going to overhaul everything all at once, and when that becomes overwhelming, they give up. The trick isn't to start big. It's to start so small that failure is impossible. Want to start exercising? Don't commit to an hour at the gym right away. Start with 5 push-ups. Start with a 10-minute walk. Make it so easy that there's no excuse not to do it. Once the habit is in place, you can build on it, you can make it bigger, but you have to start. The other secret to habit building is understanding that your environment matters more than your willpower. You are a product of your surroundings, whether you like it or not. If you want to read more, put books where you can see them. If you want to eat healthier, remove junk food from your home. If you want to focus, eliminate distractions. Don't rely on sheer force of will to do the right thing. Set up your life in a way that makes the right thing the easy thing. And here's something most people never consider. Every habit you build is a vote for the person you want to become. Every time you show up to the gym, you're casting a vote for the identity of someone who takes care of their body. Every time you sit down to write, you're casting a vote for the identity of a writer. And the more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Eventually, it's no longer about what you do, it's about who you are. And once a habit is tied to your identity, it stops being something you struggle to maintain. It becomes part of you. Of course, there will be setbacks. You'll miss a day. You'll fall off track. But here's the most important rule of all. Never miss twice. 1 mistake is an accident. 2 in a row is the beginning of a new habit. The key is to forgive yourself for slipping up, but refuse to let it become a pattern. Progress isn't about never failing, it's about always getting back on track. And if you can commit to that, if you can build even the smallest positive habits and stick with them, you'll look back in a year, in 5 years, in 10, and realize that the person you've become, the strength you've built, the knowledge you've gained, the discipline you've developed, wasn't the result of some sudden dramatic change. It was the result of 1,000 small choices repeated over time until they became who you are. Because success isn't something you achieve, it's something you become. Every time you try to improve yourself, every time you take a step towards something meaningful, you will face resistance. It will come in many forms. Procrastination, self-doubt, distractions, fear. It will disguise itself as rational thinking, telling you that now isn't the right time, that you're not ready, that you don't have enough knowledge or skill to begin. It will whisper excuses, and if you listen, it will keep you exactly where you are. This resistance is a universal force. It exists in everyone. It's the reason people fail to follow through on their goals. It's the reason they hesitate to take action. And the truth is, you will never fully eliminate it. It doesn't go away. But what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck is not the absence of resistance, it's the willingness to act in spite of it. The mind is tricky. It wants comfort. It wants ease. It wants to protect you from discomfort, from struggle, from anything that feels uncertain. But here's the paradox. The very things your mind tries to protect you from are the things that will make you stronger. Growth only happens when you push against resistance, when you face discomfort and move through it instead of running from it. People often say they lack motivation, that they'll start when they feel inspired. But motivation is unreliable. It's fleeting. It's easy to be motivated when things are going well, when progress is visible, when energy is high. But what about the days when you don't feel like it? Well, what about the days when everything feels difficult, when the excitement has worn off, when the voice in your head is telling you to take it easy, to give up, to stop? Those are the moments that define you, not the days when things are easy, but the days when they're hard, because discipline is built in the moments when you don't feel like showing up but do anyway. It's built in the moments when every part of you wants to quit, but you push forward regardless. And if you wait for motivation, you'll never get far. But if you cultivate discipline, if you teach yourself to act regardless of how you feel, then nothing can stop you. One of the most powerful ways to break through resistance is to shrink the task. The mind resists things that feel overwhelming. If you tell yourself you have to write a book, it feels impossible. But if you tell yourself to write one paragraph, suddenly it feels manageable. If you want to work out but don't feel like it, commit to just 5 minutes. If you want to start a project but feel stuck, focus on just the first step. The key is to lower the barrier to action so that resistance has no room to take hold. Because once you start, momentum takes over. Another way to overcome resistance is to create systems of accountability. Left to our own devices, we are far more likely to procrastinate, to make excuses, to rationalize our inaction. But when we involve others, when we have a friend, a mentor, a group that holds us accountable, it becomes much harder to quit. We don't want to let others down. We don't want to break a commitment that we've made publicly. And sometimes that external pressure is exactly what we need to push through. But beyond discipline, beyond strategy, beyond all the tricks to staying on track, there is something deeper, a reason, a purpose. The people who persist, the ones who overcome resistance time and time again, are the ones who are connected to something meaningful. They're not just chasing vague goals. They know why they're doing what they're doing. They have a vision of who they want to become, of the impact they want to have, of the life they want to build. And that vision pulls them forward, even when everything inside them wants to stop. If you don't have that, if you don't have a compelling reason to keep going, you'll always struggle to stay motivated, because motivation fades when things get difficult. But purpose doesn't. Purpose keeps you grounded. It reminds you why you started. It gives meaning to the struggle. And when you have a clear reason, a powerful why, no amount of resistance can stop you. So when you feel stuck, when you feel unmotivated, when resistance is at its strongest, don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. Act. Even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, move forward. Because every time you push through resistance, every time you take action when you don't feel like it, you're proving to yourself that you're stronger than the excuses, stronger than the fears, stronger than the part of you that wants to stay the same. And if you do that, if you keep doing that, you will realize something powerful, that resistance never really had control over you. You were always in control. If you want to improve yourself by 1% every day, you need a plan, a structure that keeps you on track, that ensures you're not just hoping for growth, but actively pursuing it. Because growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. It happens when you decide with clarity and intention to become more than you were yesterday. The first step is to be brutally honest about where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where you pretend to be, but where you actually stand in your life right now. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where are you falling short? Most people avoid this kind of self-examination because it's uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their flaws, to acknowledge that they are not yet who they want to be. But if you refuse to see the problem, how can you ever fix it? Growth starts with truth. Once you've identified where you are, you need to define where you want to go, not in vague terms, I want to be successful or I want to be happy, isn't enough. You need specifics. What does success look like for you? What habits, skills, or qualities do you need to develop to get there? Break it down, because when you're clear about your destination, the path forward becomes far easier to navigate. Now comes the most important part, identifying the small daily actions that will move you forward. This is where most people get it wrong. They dream big, they set lofty goals, and then they try to change everything at once. And when it becomes overwhelming, they give up. But you don't need massive change all at once. You need small, sustainable improvement, 1% better today than yesterday. That might mean reading for 10 minutes. It might mean making one healthier meal choice. It might mean waking up 5 minutes earlier. The key is to make it so small, so manageable, that there is no excuse not to do it. The beauty of the 1% approach is that it compounds. At first, the changes seem insignificant, but over time, they build. 1 day of effort won't change your life. Neither will 1 week, but 1 year? 5 years? That's the difference between staying stuck and becoming unrecognizable. Because real transformation isn't about doing one great thing once. It's about doing small, meaningful things consistently over time. And of course, you will stumble. You will have days where you fall short, where you miss the mark, where you feel like giving up. That's part of the process. The key is not to let failure define you. If you slip, get back on track immediately. Don't wait. Don't let one missed day become a pattern. Keep moving forward. Because if you can commit to just 1% growth every day, if you can make the choice again and again to be just a little better than you were before, then the person you become in the years ahead will be someone you could hardly recognize today. And that is the power of small, deliberate action. That is the path to real, lasting change. Life will test you. No matter how disciplined you are, no matter how well you plan, there will be obstacles. Moments when progress feels slow, when setbacks shake your confidence, when you wonder if all the effort is even worth it. And in those moments, 2 things will determine whether you keep moving forward or give up entirely: resilience and patience. Resilience is the ability to endure difficulty without breaking. It's what allows you to keep going when things don't go your way, when failure knocks you down, when the path ahead seems uncertain. Most people crumble under hardship, not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they haven't built the inner strength to withstand discomfort. They see struggle as a sign to stop, when in reality, it's a sign to push harder. Growth is never smooth. It's jagged, unpredictable, filled with moments of doubt. But those who keep going, despite the difficulty, are the ones who eventually succeed. Patience is just as crucial. We live in a world that glorifies instant results, but real change takes time. No great achievement happens overnight. No meaningful transformation is immediate. If you expect quick rewards, you will quit the moment things take longer than expected. But if you understand that progress compounds, that consistency over time is the key, then you will develop the patience to endure. Resilience keeps you standing, patience keeps you moving. And if you cultivate both, if you refuse to break under pressure and refuse to rush the process, then there is nothing that can stop you from becoming the person you are meant to be. Improving yourself by 1% every day is not about chasing perfection or making drastic changes overnight. It's about committing to the process, to the small, deliberate actions that compound over time. It's about understanding that real growth comes from the choices you make daily, the habits you build, the resistance you overcome, the patience you cultivate. You won't always feel motivated. You will face setbacks. There will be days when progress seems invisible, when you question whether the effort is worth it. But that is exactly when it matters most. Because every step forward, no matter how small, is a step away from who you were yesterday and a step toward the person you are becoming. This journey is not about reaching some final destination. It's about continuous evolution. It's about proving to yourself again and again that you are capable of more than you ever thought possible. And if you commit to that process, if you refuse to settle, if you show up every day, even in the smallest of ways, you will look back and realize that you have built a life of strength, of purpose. Because the difference between the person you are today and the person you want to become isn't found in one grand moment of transformation. It's found in the thousands of small, deliberate choices you make every single day. And the best part? That journey starts